Episode 13, Keeping Up with the Friedmans, 1982. We now know the Splendor and Lilith reference. Lilith is Adam's first wife before Eve. The Book of Splendor, aka the Sefer Ha-Zohar, is a Kabbalah text. Manhattan, Central Park West. Benjamin urges Jeremiah to rehearse his Bar-Mitzvah recital. Judaism. Judaism predates the death of Christ by more than 2,500 years. The followers are still awaiting the Messiah. The book mentions the year 5742 to the Genesis. The current year of 2015 is 5775 on the Jewish calendar, so 5775 minus 5742 equals 33. And then you take the year 2015 minus those 33 years, and we get 1982. So that was pretty accurate. Genesis. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth and all living creatures in 6 days. On the seventh day, he rested. Then God created humans as slaves to work the land. He made them from the dust of the ground and breathed life into his nostrils. He named the first man Adam, or Adam. Adam lived in the Garden of Eden, which contained the tree of knowledge, and eating the fruit from this tree was forbidden. Adam's wives. God gave Adam a wife. You would expect to see Eve here, but you get a reference called Queen of the Ha-Hitsonim, which when you look it up, the phrase, who is Adam's first wife, you get the result of Lilith. Lilith didn't want Adam to be on top when they had sex because she saw it as a power move. If you try looking up Ha-Hitsonim on the Google search engine, nothing shows up on Google results except the White Book. Does anybody know what Ha-Hitsonim is? Then came Eve. Eve was good for a while until Satan, in the form of a serpent, conducts his famous deed to get Eve to convince Adam to eat a fruit from the tree of knowledge. Tree of knowledge. God found that they ate from the tree of knowledge, how dare they, and he forever punished them and their offspring. Reminds me of the movie 2010. All of these worlds are yours except for Europa. Attempt no landings there. Women had to give childbirth and men had to work and suffer from the result. But by eating from the tree of knowledge, man became a god, and we know this from the quote, "Behold, the man has become one of us." Us? Plural gods? To know good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. This is part of the truth that is hidden from man, that he is a god. You are not supposed to figure this out, and this is the part of the wisdom of the secret schools. Thou art God. They tell you it is sinful to think that you are. God kicks them out of the garden and puts up a flaming sword. The sword is the gate that keeps the unworthy away from the Sephiroth. The Sephirothic tree consists of 10 globes of luminous splendor in 3 vertical columns and connected by 22 channels or paths. The 10 globes are called the Sephiroth, and to them are assigned the numbers 1 to 10. The 3 columns are called Mercy on the right, Severity on the left, and between them Mildness, as the reconciling power. When I saw Mercy, I thought of the Marcy Projects from the Jay-Z chapter. The columns may also be said to represent wisdom, strength, and beauty, which form the triune support of the universe, for it is written that the foundation of all things is the 3. The triad. The 22 channels are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and to them are assigned the major trumps of the tarot deck of symbolic cards. Were Adam and Eve and Lilith the first elements? It says that Adam and Lilith were from the same sand. What if they were both hydrogen? They would bond together to create helium? But since helium is a noble gas and should have equal balance, maybe Lilith didn't like that Adam would see himself as on top and left, so that hydrogen would then mix with many other elements? I don't know, this is just my guess. All of the sex in Genesis might actually be elements bonding, and all of their offspring are the solutions of the elements bonding. Since Eve is formed from a rib, maybe that was one of the valence electrons? And since God always wants sacrifices, maybe it means giving up a valence electron in an ionic bond where you give up cations and God receives the anion. Adam is atom, and from the atom all things have spawned. All things come from light. If you look at subatomic particles far enough, it's just wave particles of light. Could it be the entire Adam and Eve story may be a metaphor for the Big Bang and how through hydrogen bonding with itself, thus creating all of the elements of the periodic table? This would also explain how all of the incest could take place. Are the 7 days that God created the universe the 7 periods to the periodic table? Questions the chapter asks and some answers. Who were Eve's children? Well, who knows what the Kabbalah says, but the traditional version is Cain, Abel, and Seth, and then all of the rest of the children that came after. What is the sin they committed? Well, Cain was lazy and jealous, I suppose, and a murderer. How long did they live? I suppose Adam lived like 900 years. Does the Kabbalah have the exact dates? Who was it that found grace in the Lord's eyes? Noah. Who were the sons that repopulated the earth? Shem, Ham, Japheth, Gomer, and Magog. Who were the Gentiles? What were the neighboring isles? And what can you say about the Tower of Babel? You know, if the Tower of Babel was like the stairway to heaven that man was trying to build to get to heaven, and God didn't like it, and he destroyed all of our languages and divided mankind, and also wouldn't let anybody eat from the tree of knowledge, it's like, why can man not ascend to godlike powers? Why is he forbidden from that? Why does he keep getting shunned? Why doesn't God want to share? Who was Cain afraid of? Cain was scared to be banished as a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. This is in Genesis 4:13-14. Killed? By whom? If he is Adam and Eve's first son, who else is on the earth? The Nephilim? I can't get a good answer for this. Cain then moves to Nod and lays with his first wife, and she becomes pregnant with Enoch. Where did Cain find this wife? Because the first 3 are Cain, Abel, and Seth. So are there all these other people around the planet that aren't mentioned? How did these lands even have names? This and many other reasons are why I constantly, as Georgios Tsoukalos always refers back to, extraterrestrials. People take the Bible as having all the answers, but there's so many answers that are not there. Who are all these other people? Who are these people outside of Adam and Eve's lineage? And obviously I know this is all metaphorical, but, for argument's sake, who are these other people? Who are these Nephilim? My rule is if you can't explain it, extraterrestrials. Not faith, E.T. Always go back to E.T. when things are unexplainable. That's my rule. You want to defend your little science version or your religion version, fine. But you know what mine is? E.T. Can't explain something? E.T. Can't explain it? Extraterrestrials. The Patriarchs. Abram, one of Noah's grandchildren that God would speak with personally. He was told by God to go to Canaan. His wife, Sarai, couldn't have children, so she suggests that Abram should have sex for reproduction with the Egyptian maid named Hagar. They do, and when Sarai finds this out, she banishes her into the wilderness, where an angel came to her and told her to go back to Abram because she is going to have a son. The angel instructs her to call him Ishmael. You call them angels, I call them extraterrestrials. You call them fallen demons, I call them extraterrestrials. You call them interdimensional beings, I'll go for that one. Rosh Hashanah. When Abram was 99 years old, God says his new name should be Abraham, and says he will be the father of many nations and have sex with many women to make many kings as offspring. Abraham and Sarai, now Sarah, have successful fertilizing sex and produce a son named Isaac. God tells Abraham to bring Isaac to a mountain and sacrifice him. Just as Abraham is about to plunge the dagger into Isaac, an angel stops him and uses a ram instead. This is why a ram's horn is blown on Rosh Hashanah. If you consider how many angels intervene, that is a whole lot of extraterrestrial encounters. Circumcision. God told Abraham to circumcise all of the men and all of the newborn males on their 8th day of birth. That would be the mark of God's covenant, and anyone that is not circumcised will have theirs chopped off or cut off from his people. I'm not sure if it means you're banished or if you get it lopped. Want to read an erotic story? Read Genesis. Isaac's wife and kids. Abraham set it up for Isaac to marry his cousin Rebekah. She gives birth to Jacob and Esau, and Jacob's 12 sons became the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. Pentateuch. The Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible that conservative Bible scholars believe were mostly written by Moses. There are 34 books of the Old Testament. The difference between the Pentateuch and the Torah. Torah refers in a specific sense to the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible: Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim, which correspond to the Greek Christian names Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. These books include some concise history of pre-Judges Israel, but most of the material is devoted to the law of Moses. Sometimes Torah can refer to the written and oral law. The Hebrew word Torah means instruction, direction, law. Pentateuch is the Greek and therefore usually Christian way of referring to those first 5 books. In Greek, penta means 5, and teuchos means book, case, for books. When these writings were made on scrolls, there would likely be more than one scroll. To keep them organized, they would keep the scrolls in cases. Thus, 5 cases for the Pentateuch. The word usually does not include the oral Hebrew law, since the oral tradition did not extend into Christianity. The Talmud, and I'm getting most of this stuff from Wikipedia. The Talmud is instruction, learning, teach, study, is a central text of rabbinic Judaism. It is also traditionally referred to as Shas, Shista Sadarim, the 6 orders. The term Talmud normally refers to the Babylonian Talmud, though there is also an earlier collection known as the Jerusalem Talmud, the 6 orders. Sefer Ha-Zohar. The Zohar, splendor or radiance, is the foundational work in the literature of Jewish mystical thought known as Kabbalah. It is a group of books including commentary on the mystical aspects of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and scriptural interpretations, as well as material on mysticism, mythical cosmogony, and mystical psychology. The Zohar contains a discussion of the nature of God, the origin and structure of the universe, the nature of souls, redemption, the relationship of ego to darkness, and true self to the light of God, and the relationship between the universal energy and man. Its scriptural exegesis can be considered an esoteric form of the rabbinic literature known as Midrash, which elaborates on the Torah. Shalom Alechem. It means peace be upon you. You reply with Alechem Shalom. Upon you be peace. This looks like the Muslim phrase Assalamu Alaikum that you often hear in rap songs. If you were a Jedi, you would say, may the Force be with you. If you are a Sith, you would say, may the Force serve you well. A lot of this Jewish mysticism that was discussed here, it was a good half of the chapter, and these are also topics that I've often wondered about and wanted to know more about. Ever since Reggie White, the former NFL football player, went to Israel and got to read the original scripts and converted to Judaism, I've always been fascinated with the topic. And this chapter gave me the opportunity to explore the topic further. The part that probably most shocked me was the discovery that Eve was not Adam's first wife, and that it was Lilith. And through that discovery, it unlocked the mysteries of the previous chapters, because if you remember the Jay-Z Splendor chapter, the character's name was Lilith that gave Jay-Z the beer. And we didn't know why the chapter was called Splendor either. And so it unlocked those answers. All was revealed. Let's get into some of the characters. The characters in the chapter are Jeremiah Friedman. I'm trying to figure out who that is. The only one I could think of is Michael Rappaport, but I don't think Michael Rappaport is who Jeremiah Friedman is. But that's because I know that Dame Dash knew Michael Rappaport when they were young. Benjamin Friedman, from a previous chapter. Alliouisis divine, Jeremiah's uncle. Jeremiah's mother. Famous game, Fortunate divine. Dania, Tish, Corinne, Lynette, Nasha, and Clarence. New Jersey, Teterboro Airport. Benjamin informs Alliouisis about the rising threat of hip-hop with the Classified Cointelpro memo. They listen to a cassette. Music is the weapon of the future. Quote by Fela Kuti. Benjamin invites Alliouisis and Fourtunate to Jeremiah's Bar-Mitzvah so that he could be introduced to the right crowd. Orwellian Fantasies. Extensive files on every citizen. Too much paperwork, human error, working the kinks out. The military is almost fully automated. Soon, it will hit the private sector. Big Brother will soon be a reality. If you look up the dates of total information awareness when it became defunded by Congress, it's 2003, and that's the same year that social networks were born. And that way, everybody gets to update their own dossier online for free to the government. It's great. And if you were a business person that you're too cool to go online, well, you have a LinkedIn profile, don't you? Because you want your resume out there. Genius. Manchurian Global. Manufacture RFIDs, radio frequency identification devices. Chip humans, every last one of them. You no longer need to gather intelligence. We just let them hang themselves for us. Soon, every citizen will be carrying one type of indistinct pod or another, complete with their personal information. Add an RFID onto it, and you could gather intel and track their movements. It frees up time for agents. Laborers, an endangered species. We now live in the snitch economy. Time is the commodity of the future. America's industrial economy is on the decline, and that's putting the value of our dollar in jeopardy. The economic future of America lies in knowledge-based wealth. Who knows more about surveillance, intelligence gathering, and national security than the spooks and secret societies? They'd be fools not to capitalize on it. We now live in the information age. The irony. The biggest threats were never any army or laws. It's the hippie subculture that sits around gathering information and promoting their social, religious, and economic reform. It's competition. They're similar to the agency. They think outside the box. Their weakness has been their inability to come together. With their hipsterness, their excluding culture, schnauzers in the air. They fester in small pockets. But what if hip-hop could unite them all? The doom scenario. If the middle class and the working poor ever came to their senses and joined together, the upper class would have a big problem. It would be the haves versus the have-nots. And just in case anyone rises up from the bottom, they'll be developed as assets, worked, and then turned out. Once the have-nots become the haves, they will do absolutely anything not to go back. That reminds me of that scene in They Live at the end when Roddy Piper and the other guy meet the guy that they used to be on the construction site with. And he's like, "God, I thought you boys understood. They control everything." And he goes, "You'd do it to your own kind, wouldn't you?" The report from Iron Mountain. I see this as the right time to share with the rest of you conspiracy theorists the report from Iron Mountain, because it is one of the gems, the prized possessions of the conspiracy theory movement. The report from Iron Mountain is a book published in 1967 during the Johnson administration by Dial Press, which puts itself forth as the report of a government panel. The book includes the claim that it was authored by a special study group of 15 men whose identities were to remain secret and that it was not intended to be made public. It details the analysis of a government panel, which concludes that war, or a credible substitute for war, is necessary if governments are to maintain power. According to the report, a 15-member panel called the Special Study Group was set up in 1963 to examine what problems would occur if the United States entered into a state of lasting peace. What would happen if peace should break out? peace cannot break out. So they met at an underground nuclear bunker called Iron Mountain, as well as other worldwide locations, and worked over the next 2 years. The heavily footnoted report concluded that peace was not in the interest of a stable society, that even if lasting peace could ever be achieved, it would almost certainly not be in the best interests of society to achieve it. War was a part of the economy. Therefore, it was necessary to conceive a state of war for a stable economy. The government, the group theorized, would not exist without war, and nation-states existed in order to wage war. War also served a vital function of diverting collective aggression. They recommended that bodies be created to emulate the economic functions of war. They also recommended blood games, think Hunger Games, and that the government create alternative foes that would scare the people with reports of alien life forms and out-of-control pollution. Another proposal was the reinstitution of slavery. And if you also read The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism from 1984, it states in War is Peace that wars are conducted not necessarily to kill the population off, but to destroy the manufactured goods so that people will have to consistently work. You cannot give people free time or the ability to free think. Lower Manhattan on Broadway. Deosis and Goodman Game are on a double date, enjoying the middle-class lifestyle. As they travel, they notice the difference between the rich neighborhoods and the poor neighborhoods, and how it just drops off. It references the decision they made 10 years ago at the Ritz and how it paid off. It demonstrates how upper middle-class guys and gals interact. Manhattan, Central Park West. Jerry, skips school and invites fortune and fame to get hookers and smoke pot. Dame, Fame, isn't really that interested in skipping, but he goes anyway because Fortunate wants to go and he's impressed with Jeremiah's money. Dame is kind of like, hey, we got money too. What do we care? They figure out that Jerry wants to have sex with a black hooker, so Fame and Fortune request a white hooker. It's a perfect scenario. It's really cute. Fame and Fortune are trying to taste the white life, and Jerry is trying to taste the black life. What a combo. Cultural references: Atari, Prince, Windowpane, Hall & Oates, I Can't Go For That, Dapper Dan's, Gucci, Fifth Avenue, D&G, Divine and Game, or Dolce & Gabbana. Old Money, Harlem World, Small's Paradise, Morris Day and the MF in Time, I'm Just Cool, Do Me Baby, Dreamgirls, Jennifer Holliday, Cats, LaCag Aux Follies, Cassette Tapes versus Records, Benz's, The Deuce, Jerry Curl, Soul Glow, Activator, Microwave Ovens, Pizza Delivery, Crank Calling the Pizza Guy, Melvin's on Broadway, Hunts Point, Bristol, The Bristol Hotel, Show World, Yankees, Knicks, Canucks, Islanders, 49ers, Super Bowl 16, Cool Herc, Lovebug Starsky, Red Alert, The Message, Polo shirts, khaki pants, brown polo shoes, Izod tennis shirts, George Marciano jeans, Red Pumas, Richard Pryor, The Toy, Northern Lights, Reefer, Tree Bag, Nick, Eddie Bauer, and Blunts. Excerpts. Lady Cab Driver by Prince. This is for the cab you have to drive for no money at all. This is for why I wasn't born like my brother, handsome and tall. This is for politicians who are bored and believe in war. This, yeah, that's for me. That's who that's for. The Time. Cool. I got a penthouse in Manhattan, 2 more in Malibu. I bought an 87 Cadillac Seville. Girl, I got a Maserati too. I wear diamonds on my fingers. I got a couple on my toes. I wear the finest perfume money can buy. It keeps me smelling like a rose. Remember that Dolomite Big Daddy Kane song? I've been bit by a shark and stung by an eel. I'll eat up a railroad track and shit out steel. I'll see you in 1983. This was a big chapter for me to research, so it took a little bit to put together. I'm still having a good time. Hope you are too. The background music was produced and provided by Cam Carl from Northern Lights Nation. Make sure you check out their album Filth and The Diary of Santa Marta. They have a track with Busy Bone called Every Day, and a track with Stevie Stone called Renegade. It's available on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, and everywhere worldwide. And I'll see you in 1983.